professor of theology at Fordham University, and she has extensive knowledge of papal history. So let me ask you, thank you for coming by. People are saying that this visit promises to be so different from those of his predecessors. What is it that's going to make it so different?
His personality. He is a very humble person, and I would say, unlike previous popes, he is really into being a pastor, a person who interacts with persons on the margins. So whenever he goes to visit, it's not just to bishops or seminarians, it's to people in prisons, it's to people in hospitals, people who don't normally get to see a pope.
Now, he'll be emulating, basically, John Paul II's visit in 1978, taking the message to the road, on the road.
Mm-hmm.
What message do you feel he'll be bringing to America?
One of the messages that he will be bringing is the treatment of each and every individual person as precious, whether that's an affirmation of Catholic opposition to abortion, or to war, or to cultivating young people, to paying attention to those who are on the margins.
He's one of the most opinionated popes we have seen in recent time, and he on every conceivable subject. And 2/3 of the American people surveyed in the Pew Research Institute, they look at him favorably on his views. What is it that has captured the imagination of so many people in this country?
I think from the first day when he was elected, a lot of people were impressed with his humility, saying not, I will be praying for you, but please pray for me, and his support for bishops around the world, not as minions of the Vatican, but as pastors in their own right.
But also he's doing something, he's bringing, seems to be bringing the church into modern times. And he has taken bold moves as recently as a week ago, where he's changing a policy somewhat to make annulments easier for Catholics. This has never happened before.
No, what he's done is to abolish a whole level of appeal so that it's speedier. People's lives can get back together more quickly, and that's analogous to what he did with asking people who have had abortions to come forward, be forgiven, and be reintegrated into the Catholic community.
Now these are reforms. He's taking a whole new approach to the papacy, which we have not seen.
Yes, this has nothing to do with doctrine. He's going to hold on to doctrine just the same as anybody else. Instead, what he's doing is to nuance pastoral practice so that the church appears to be more welcoming and more interested in bringing people back, not just holding a hard line.
You said the words, bringing people back. There has been such an exodus from the church in recent years, and a lot of it dealing with the church policies. And it's a recognition that there has to be some change, some reform. Where else do you see this Pope making reforms in the church? I know there's a big synod coming up next month.
I think what he's going to do is lift up the whole image of the family as nurturing faith, not just having faith imposed by priests and bishops, but as being the seed ground for the nurturing of faith, the nurturing of vocations to religious life. You're not going to see people joining religious orders and becoming priests unless their mothers are into this.
Now, he does remain opposed to gay marriage, yet he seems to be a bit more conciliatory than his predecessors.
Yes, I think what he's doing is recognizing something that canon lawyers, church lawyers will recognize, and sociologists, that there's a difference between marriage and matrimony. In the Middle Ages, people looked around Christian theologians and said, well, Jews get married, Muslims get married, people who have multiple wives get married. What's the difference between that and Christian matrimony? They made a separation between the two and said you can have a society where all these other forms of marriage are happening without it imposing itself on matrimony, a Christian idea of what a marriage should be.
If I'm quoting him correctly, I believe he said, "Who am I to judge?"
Yes, and that was in the context of gays who are seeking the Lord earnestly. He's not just saying, who am I to judge any particular way? He's saying, if somebody is really trying to do their best and trying to come into a relationship with God, that's something he wants to really weigh positively.
Dr. Tilley, let's talk about this, and it's so controversial about women in the church. We certainly have nuns, but there are no women in the priesthood. And he still says that he holds firm to that. Mm-hmm. Yet he has elevated many women to higher positions in the Vatican. So he is making some movement and the recognition of the importance of women in the church.
Yes, I think what he's doing is looking at where can women be placed with the particular talents that they're bringing, and not just saying, well, they can't be there because they're not ordained.
Can we expect, the synod, you have the bishops coming together in the Vatican in October, and they're going to take up major issues. They're going to be talking about homosexuality, and they're going to talk about the annulment and abortion. Can we expect any reforms coming out of this papacy, out of this synod coming up in October?
What happens at a synod is there is a proposal that comes from the Vatican about how things should be discussed and what should be discussed. The bishops then look at that as possibilities. They discuss what they want, and then they send a document, which is the synod's ideas, back to the Pope. It's up to the Pope to nuance that or simply to throw it out the window and say what he wants. So whatever is being discussed, it doesn't necessarily correspond to what the Pope needs to say at the end.
Can we expect this Pope is going to bring the church into the 21st century?
I think definitely. And I think he's going to do it much more quickly than the push that we've seen under previous popes. This Pope knows he has a limited length of time.
Last word, tell me about your excitement about the Pope coming to America and to New York in particular.
I think it's really interesting to have someone whose whole education has not been Roman-based, who has been around the world, and who wants to be a pastor, and that's really pretty exciting.
Dr. Maureen A. Tilley, theologian at Fordham University, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.